Like, it physically makes me feel ill. I feel also sleepy. Like, I'm like, no energy.
What if the man you thought was your forever was secretly flirting with someone else on your wedding day? What if the vows he whispered to you at the altar were barely out of his mouth before he turned his eyes to another woman? Right there, among your family and friends? That's not just betrayal. That's humiliation dressed as love. For Eva Longoria, the red carpets, the fairytale dress, the A-list husband, none of it could protect her from the gut-wrenching truth she would uncover too late. This is the story of how one of Hollywood's most glamorous romances crumbled from the inside. A story of love, lies, and the kind of betrayal that makes you question everything. For a moment, it looked like Eva Longoria had it all. She wasn't just a successful actress, she was the face of mid-2000s Hollywood. With her breakout role on Desperate Housewives, Eva had catapulted from soap opera regular to one of the most in-demand, photographed, and admired women in the world. Magazine covers, red carpet appearances, international interviews, everywhere you turn, she was there, and always with that signature charm. Confident, glamorous, untouchable. So when she married NBA superstar Tony Parker in 2007, people didn't just celebrate the wedding, they obsessed over it. The media dubbed it the celebrity fairytale. The ceremony was held in an actual castle in France, Château de Vaux-le-Vicomte, surrounded by candlelight, crystal, and couture. Eva wore not one, but two designer gowns. Tony stood beside her like a prince out of a storybook. They exchanged vows in both French and English, sealing their transatlantic love story in a way that felt timeless. Photos from that day were everywhere. The kiss, the flowers, the custom wedding rings. They're perfect together, fans gushed. They're going to last. And on paper, it made sense. She was the Hollywood icon with a heart of gold. He was the French-born basketball prodigy, charming, low-key, and seemingly uninterested in the spotlight. Their worlds couldn't have been more different, but that's what made it romantic. Opposites attract. In interviews, they painted a picture of effortless love. Tony would praise Eva for keeping their relationship strong despite their schedules. Eva would laugh about adapting to his sports lifestyle. They were the image of balance, the actress and the athlete making it work. One game, one film set, one red carpet at a time. But here's the thing about picture-perfect relationships. They're often just that, pictures. What fans saw were posed smiles, carefully crafted statements, and red carpet kisses. What they didn't see was what was happening when the cameras turned off. Eva may have believed in the fairy tale, but Tony? He was already rewriting the ending. And the most chilling part? The other woman was already in the picture, quite literally. Fairy tales usually end with happily ever after. But for Eva Longoria, the fairy tale started falling apart before the wedding cake was even cut. Her dream day, a royal-style celebration at a French chateau, was everything the tabloids said it was. Stunning, lavish, magical. But somewhere in the crowd, tucked between the flashing cameras and champagne toasts, stood a woman who would later claim that she locked eyes with Tony Parker and never looked away. That woman was Alexandra Persson, a French model who would later shock the entertainment world with one of the most jaw-dropping claims of the 2000s, that she had met Tony at his wedding to Eva. Yes, his own wedding. According to Alexandra, it didn't take long for a casual glance to turn into something darker. In her version of events, she was introduced to Tony through a mutual acquaintance shortly after the ceremony. What followed was a slow burn of late-night conversations, suggestive texts, and secret meetings, all while Tony played the doting husband in front of the cameras. It was the ultimate deception, celebrating monogamy by day, breaking it by night. She said it started in July. They met, they flirted, and by September they were already involved, intimately. But here's where it got really twisted. Alexandra didn't just tell a story, she documented it. She provided alleged screenshots of text messages between her and Tony, messages laced with intimate references, pet names, and even discussions about Eva. And these weren't just harmless flirty exchanges. They were the kind of messages that, if true, proved that Tony wasn't just cheating. He was using Alexandra as a way to escape his marriage. She shared details only someone close to Tony could have known. Things about his private preferences, places he stayed, what they did together. She even brought up things Eva allegedly refused to do in the bedroom, including not wanting to be intimate in front of mirrors and avoiding certain positions. The implication that Tony was justified in looking elsewhere. One message Alexandra claimed referenced strawberries, Nutella, and a duck-shaped vibrator. It was surreal. Tabloid gold, almost too bizarre to make up, but also too specific to ignore. Fans didn't know whether to laugh, cringe, or be furious on Eva's behalf. When confronted, Eva didn't believe it. Or at least, she couldn't believe it. She stood by her husband. In her mind, they were newlyweds, still writing their love story, and the idea that he was already turning the page behind her back was too devastating to accept. But that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't wait. It creeps in, slow, silent, poisonous, until denial becomes impossible. And in this case, Alexandra wasn't even the only one. Because while Eva was still defending her husband to the press, Tony was allegedly getting comfortable with yet another woman. Eva Longoria wasn't just in love, she was all in. She believed in marriage, in loyalty, in the fairy tale she had worked so hard to build. So when the first cracks appeared, she did what many people do when faced with the unthinkable. She looked the other way. At the height of the rumors, Eva stood by her man like her life depended on it. She dismissed the gossip. She downplayed the accusations. In interview after interview, she called Tony the perfect husband. Not a great guy, the perfect husband. And it wasn't just for show. You could hear the conviction in her voice, the way she smiled through questions that clearly made her uncomfortable. Eva wasn't pretending, she was protecting. Because to admit the truth, that would mean admitting the entire foundation of her life was a lie. To the world, Eva looked like the definition of strength. She was stylish, polished, in control, but behind the scenes, she was breaking. Quietly, slowly, piece by piece. And the cruelest part? Tony knew that. He knew how much she loved him, how much she believed in them, and he used it. He didn't confess, he didn't apologize. He let her carry the weight of defending him while he danced in the shadows with women who weren't wearing wedding rings. And Eva? She played the role of the loyal wife so well, even her closest friends were convinced she was okay. She wasn't. In one heartbreaking interview years later, Eva admitted how hard it was to separate her identity from her role as a wife. She said, "I had such an identity in being Mrs. Parker. So when that's taken away from you, you go, who am I?" It wasn't just a breakup. It was a full-blown identity crisis. And through all of it, the whispers, the doubts, the suspicious texts, the headlines, Eva held on until one day, she couldn't anymore. Because eventually, even the strongest woman runs out of excuses. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, they did. Fast. The Alexandra scandal had already stunned fans, but the situation was far from over. Because as messy as it already was, Tony Parker wasn't done. He wasn't just unfaithful, he was reckless. After the initial shockwaves of Alexandra's claims, more disturbing details began to leak. She revealed that their affair didn't end because of guilt. It ended because she discovered he was cheating on her too. That's right. The man cheating on his wife was simultaneously cheating on his mistress. With her best friend, Tony allegedly asked for a three-way relationship. Not just once, repeatedly. According to Alexandra, he wanted to involve her and her friend in a ménage à trois. And no, that's not a rumor from a tabloid deep dive. Those were Alexandra's own words. He wasn't even subtle about it. He made it clear that one woman was never going to be enough. And the messages? They got even weirder. Aside from his not-so-subtle requests, there were texts that referenced strawberries, Nutella, and a duck-shaped vibrator. A literal duck? Eva was living in a castle of illusions. Meanwhile, her husband was allegedly role-playing in hotel rooms with dessert toppings and novelty toys. And this wasn't just Alexandra talking. Reporters started investigating. One from People magazine went so far as to meet Alexandra in person. She doubled down. She said Tony made prolonged eye contact with her all night at his wedding, that their connection began shortly after, that he flew her out to his home in San Antonio, that their intimacy was electric. By now, this story was spiraling out of control, not just for the tabloids, but for Eva, who was still trying to keep it together in public. But even if she wanted to believe Tony, the evidence was piling up, and the whispers were turning into screams. And then the next name dropped. This time it wasn't a model, it wasn't a stranger. It was someone way too close to home. Just when it felt like the drama had peaked, Tony Parker crossed a line no one expected. One that shook not just his marriage, but his reputation within the NBA itself. In late 2010, after years of rumors and damage control, Eva Longoria finally filed for divorce. The reason? She allegedly discovered hundreds of messages between Tony and Erin Barry. That name wasn't just another headline. Erin wasn't a model or a fan. She was the wife of Tony's Spurs teammate Brent Barry. Let that sink in. Tony wasn't just having an affair. He was allegedly sneaking around with his teammate's wife, a woman who shared locker room dinners, courtside seats, and social circles with Eva. It was betrayal on a different level. Personal, professional, and deeply humiliating. The media went into overdrive. The story exploded overnight. Eva's rep said she was devastated. Mario Lopez, a close friend of hers, confirmed that she had discovered the messages and was heartbroken. And while Erin Barry denied anything physical happened, the messages, hundreds of them, told a different story. Tony and Erin insisted it wasn't an affair, that it was just texts. But let's be honest. When you're hiding messages from your wife and your teammate, you're not texting about the weather. And the fallout? Brutal. Brent Barry and Erin separated soon after. Eva and Tony were already unraveling. The Spurs locker room, once known for its discipline and brotherhood, was suddenly under a cloud of scandal. Trust was broken, both at home and on the court. Tony tried to defend himself. He filed a $20 million lawsuit against the tabloid that first ran Alexandra's story. He told reporters he loved his wife, that she was the best thing in his life. But it was too late. The damage wasn't just done, it was documented. And through it all, Eva stayed quiet, composed, dignified, until she couldn't anymore. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about humiliation. The kind that follows you everywhere. The kind you can't escape, no matter how many designer dresses or public smiles you wear. Once the truth spilled out, there was no putting it back. The public image of Tony Parker, quiet, loyal, respectful, shattered almost overnight. And Eva? She was left standing in the ruins of a marriage the world thought was perfect. In November 2010, just 1 month after appearing with Tony on the Ellen DeGeneres show, smiling and laughing like everything was fine, Eva filed for divorce. To the outside world, it was a shock. But behind closed doors, she had finally seen enough. Hundreds of text messages, rumors confirmed, private pain made public. At first, Eva said nothing. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't lash out online. But her silence was loud, especially after years of defending her husband. And when she did speak, her words were measured but heartbreaking. She admitted she was devastated, that she'd given her all to the relationship, that she had believed in their future, right up until the moment it all crumbled. "I had such an identity in being Mrs. Parker," she said later. "So when that's taken away from you, you go, who am I?" It wasn't just a breakup. It was a collapse of identity. Meanwhile, Tony was scrambling, not just to save his reputation, But to salvage what little control he had over the narrative, he filed a $20 million lawsuit against X17, the outlet that broke the Alexandra scandal. He claimed defamation, denied the affair, and insisted he was still loyal to his wife. But no lawsuit could erase the texts, the timelines, the stories lining every magazine rack in America. Desperate to regain leverage, Eva reportedly tried to enforce a spousal support clause, despite having signed a prenup that explicitly ruled it out. Some speculated it was retaliation, a way of reclaiming power. Others said it was a legal strategy meant to force transparency from Tony's team. Either way, it was clear. The gloves were off. The media frenzy didn't slow down. Photos were analyzed, body language dissected. Clips of Tony kissing Eva on the forehead at the Emmys, instead of her lips, were seen as signs of emotional distance. Fans began pointing to interviews, old Instagram posts, even Ellen's awkward questions, as if the signs had been there all along. But this wasn't just a media circus, it was heartbreak in real time. Eva had loved this man. She had trusted him with her future, her name, her heart. And now she was left sifting through lies, accusations, and viral headlines. And the most painful part, even after everything, Eva still wasn't ready to speak ill of him. Not yet. Heartbreak may fade, but it never fully disappears, especially when it plays out in front of the entire world. After the dust settled from her divorce, Eva Longoria did what most people in her position struggle to do. She started over, publicly, gracefully, but not without scars. At first, she tried to move forward quietly. She was briefly linked to singer Eduardo Cruz, the younger brother of Penelope Cruz, a man nearly a decade her junior. The relationship didn't last, but it was the first sign that Eva was trying to reclaim her life, on her terms. It wasn't about optics anymore. It was about healing. Years later, she found something deeper. In 2016, Eva married Jose Baston, a successful businessman far removed from the Hollywood and NBA spotlight. They kept things low-key, private, no castles, no flashing cameras, just quiet happiness, the kind that doesn't beg for approval. The couple now shares a son, and by all appearances, Eva has built the kind of life she once only dreamed of. But don't let her calm demeanor fool you. She remembers. In interviews, she's spoken about how deeply the betrayal affected her sense of self. She's admitted to asking painful questions. Was I not pretty enough? Not smart enough? Not exciting enough? And then just as quickly, shutting that thinking down. Because she realized something that many never do. Being cheated on isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their weakness. Tony Parker, on the other hand, didn't disappear quietly. After Eva, he married French journalist Axel Francine. For a while, it seemed like he was a changed man. More private, more grounded. They had children. They kept things under the radar. But in 2020, nearly a decade after his divorce from Eva, Tony announced via Twitter that he and Axel were separating. The timing felt familiar. The language even more so. He claimed it was a mutual decision, that they wanted to get ahead of rumors and speculation. But fans couldn't help but wonder, was history repeating itself? Online, the jokes came fast. Tony's relationships have an expiration date, one commenter wrote. 8 years for Eva, 9 for Axel. What's next? 10 years and a trophy. Another user asked the question everyone was thinking, but no one dared say out loud. Is this just how he operates? Stay long enough to look loyal, but never long enough to grow roots? For Eva, the chapter with Tony may be closed, but it's not forgotten. She's never trashed him publicly, never told the whole story. But in the way she carries herself now, with clarity, boundaries, and a quiet kind of power, you can tell she learned from the pain. And honestly, that's what makes her story worth telling. Because some people break under betrayal. Others rebuild, stronger than ever. Eva Longoria's story isn't just about betrayal, it's about rediscovery. The headlines focused on the scandal, the texts, the women, the fall of a public marriage that once looked untouchable. But behind all that noise was a woman quietly piecing herself back together, far away from the cameras. She had believed in the promise, in the vows, in the life they were building. And when it all unraveled and in private messages, behind hotel doors, and across whispered rumors, she didn't explode. She didn't retaliate. She simply let go. That's what strength looks like. Not in the silence, but in the choice to protect your peace when everything else is pulling you back into chaos. Tony Parker moved on, publicly, privately, repeating patterns that looked all too familiar. But Eva evolved. Not perfectly, not all at once, but with clarity, dignity, and the kind of resilience that doesn't need headlines to be seen. The fairy tale may have ended, but the real story, the one without castles or camera flashes, was only just beginning.